The Dallas Cowboys have started the 2024 season 1-2. It doesn't sound too bad, but they were dominated in their two losses, with both of them being at home in Jerry World in Arlington, Texas. I'm not going to keep you around in this video to tell you the problem is Jerry, because all y'all know Jerry is the problem with the Cowboys. We have talked about this for years. This video, though, is truly about the issues with the roster, scheme, what has led to this, and what it's going to look like for the rest of the year. Because panic mode should not happen after week 3 for most teams, but there are some issues. But I did want you to know this before going into the video. Jerry and Stephen Jones are the real issue with the Cowboys. As long as they're the owners of the organization, the Cowboys should not be considered an NFL team. They are an NFL scam, as they aren't trying to win a championship rather than just take your freaking money. This organization has refused to do anything other than Jerry's way since the mid-90s, and that has held every player, trainer, coach, organization member, bus driver, security guard, kitchen worker, custodian, ball boy, water boy, and cheerleader back from seeing true championship success because he has stripped that away from all of them. Jerry Jones would rather convince everyone every year that the Cowboys are good or great after a disastrous start and have them lose disastrously in the end of the season than have them be a real team that can win a championship or two in a 10-year span and be considered a team at the top every year, or a team that is well-made and in contention, because that's boring to him. And honestly, it's boring to the media. It's boring to the fans that love to hate the Cowboys. Okay, done with the rant. This is Son of a Sports. Let's get into it. In week 2 against the New Orleans Saints, Dallas's home opener, the Cowboys were slaughtered in a 44-19 loss that saw the Cowboys give up 6 touchdowns in the Saints' first 6 possessions. We all know what happened to the Cowboys in their previous home game and their playoff loss to the Packers. They got smoked at home and became the first ever 2nd seed to lose to a 7th seed. So this was the game that was supposed to follow that. This game was supposed to say that will never happen again. But no, they got freaking smoked. However, it's week 2. It's a very long season, and the Cowboys yearly have an early season loss where they look like idiots. Go look at last year with the Cardinals loss. Go look at the previous year in week 1 with the Bucs loss. But this issue with this one, it came with the same mistakes Dallas made in their loss to Green Bay. The Saints took advantage of Dallas's weak safety group and limited corner depth to take an early lead off of passing touchdowns. Dallas's offense couldn't get much going. However, this time around, they got field goals compared to the Green Bay game where they threw a pick. The Saints then punched them in the mouth, ran the ball down their throats to, keep the possession going, run out the clock. But you know what else it did? It worked and just kept on scoring. They kept scoring. If you had Alvin Kamara in fantasy, he won you the day. You had to have the worst team of all time outside of him to not win your game because of him. This Cowboys defense got exposed for being soft and weak. And another thing to note, this is a league-wide known thing, so you've already heard this name, Clint Kubiak. The New Orleans Saints' new offensive coordinator for 2024, he's son of Gary Kubiak, former offensive coordinator, head coach of the Broncos, and co-creator of what is known as the Shanahan scheme. Dallas can't play against the Shanahan offense, and that is league known. They have gotten smoked by Shanahan play callers in the last 8 years. 2017, 2018. Go look at that Rams playoff loss. Go look at the Packers playoff loss last year. Matt LaFleur is a Shanahan guy. Go look at the 49ers losses. That's Shanahan. Just straight up Shanahan. They get smoked when they face Shanahans. And there's a lot of teams in the regular season that have done the same thing. Mike McDaniel last year. Go look at a lot of it. Cardinals. Same thing, Drew Pearson. Their personnel constantly gets tricked by the use of motion in the Shanahan offense. Their defensive tackles, safeties, linebackers, and even corners are too weak in the run game to stop their outside zone running. And if you go look at the play callers of Dallas in the last 2 years, or in the last 4 years, Dan Quinn from 2021 to 2023, he was Dallas's defensive play caller. Mike Zimmer this year, they both run defenses that were phased out of the league 5 to 7 years ago. Dan Quinn's doing a better job in Washington because he can rely on 2 really good defensive tackles, at least 1 really good defensive tackle, honestly, instead of the guys he had in Dallas. So yeah, Dallas got killed by New Orleans. But how did they respond? How did they play in week 3 in their home game? They got killed again by the Ravens. and the final score may trick some people because it ended 28-25. However, it was a freaking bloodbath, and if John Harbaugh didn't almost choke like he usually does, the game would have been a blowout against Dallas, and it would have been their third blowout in 3 home games, including playoffs, of course. What happened in this disaster class by Dallas? I'm not going to give you a game recap. You're here because you're interested in what I think the problem is with the Cowboys. So I'll summarize it really quickly. Ravens got up 21-3 in the first half, off of 2 combined rushing touchdowns from Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, and a passing touchdown from Lamar to Rashad Bateman. Dallas's offense had chances to score, but thanks to a CeeDee Lamb fumble in the Ravens' red zone, the momentum all shifted towards the Ravens. Ravens start the second half with a touchdown, their 4th and last touchdown of the game, actually, before Dallas goes on a fake comeback run that involves benching CeeDee Lamb for a round 2 series, a successful onside kick, a missed field goal from one of the greatest kickers of all time, and it leads to Dallas losing in the final minutes because their defense couldn't get one more stop to put the offense back on the field. So what were the consistent issues in both these losses? Well, let me just start with Dallas has no depth in their interior defensive line. Ozzie Smith, their 2023 first-round draft pick, has not developed well. He was asked to lose a lot of weight in his first year and play out of position, and it didn't work. He just couldn't play well, and they barely played him. This year, he has been Dallas's bottom 3 defender, one of Dallas's worst defenders. He just can't really play well. Osa Odighizuwa is an incredible pass rusher, or I'll say a really good pass rusher in the interior D-line spot, but he's just not a good run defender. There are other options. Linval Joseph is a 35-year-old. He is 35 years old. Jordan Phillips, almost cut by the Giants. This is not a hate Giants moment. This is the Giants have been trying to find a defensive tackle to pair with Dexter Lawrence for a while, and Jordan Phillips got cut by them when they have not much more depth outside of him, and they are also a bottom rushing defense team in the league. And he's also 32 years old, just to add to that. That's it. All right, let's go look at linebackers. Demarion Evershone, a second-year player coming off a torn ACL. He played really good against Cleveland. A lot of people across the league, outside of Cowboys fans too, were hyped for him. They finally had another linebacker. Dallas barely played him against New Orleans, and I think he was Dallas' second lowest graded player by PFF against the Ravens. Eric Kendricks, one of the only players that can actually read an offense pre-snap on this team, it appears. He's 32 years old, though. He was Dallas' only free agent signing during the core free agency period where teams are all going after their guys. And his athleticism is mostly drained. But he was pretty good against the Ravens, considering how bad everyone else was. PFF gave him around an 80 grade. That's the best you can ask of a 32-year-old linebacker. Maurice Lefau, 5th-round draft pick. An analyst graded really low for Dallas. He played bad against New Orleans and played decent against the Ravens. He has really good instincts for a guy that's 5th-round draft pick, and that's pretty much why he was drafted, because he has a lot of mental game. He just doesn't really have a lot of the athleticism. His athleticism is below league level. He's pretty slow. Damone Clark, he's okay. He plays barely, but he's decent when he does, in terms of how he is in coverage, and especially how he is in the run game. That's it. Dallas has 4 linebackers that can really play. And if you want to remember something, their NFC East rival, Philly, the Eagles, they also have a bottom linebacker group in the league. You know what? They have Zach Bond. They have Nakobe Dean. And both those guys are better than anyone Dallas has right now. Let's look at safeties, because this is a group that no one talks about for Dallas being as bad as they are, except maybe a few Cowboys fans, diehard Cowboys fans. Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson have played unmotivated and downright careless since before the loss to Green Bay. But Wilson was rumored to be the guy that Parsons has referred to in the media as, a player trying to be Superman. And if you go search him up on TikTok, there's a popular one right now showing the tape of how bad he really was in that Ravens game. He's from Texas A&M, Gig'em, but Jesus Christ, he's been bad this year. And Dallas refuses to try backups Marquise Bell, who's played pretty good, and Janae Thomas, who has played with more heart and like he wants to play than Hooker and Wilson have played in the last 2 years. The corner room's played weak, but I'm not going to attack them a lot because Trayvon Diggs coming off a torn ACL, Deron Bland is hurt right now, and they were starting a 5th-round draft pick in Kalen Carson, who has played really good compared to where he was drafted. It's unfair to criticize him. Okay, look at the edge rushing group because this is the room that ESPN preseason graded Dallas at sixth in the league. They said they were the sixth best edge rushing room in the league. There is no one outside of Micah Parsons that can pass rush against an actual NFL starter. Jesus Christ. DeMarcus Lawrence, everyone act like he played good in week one. PFF gave him a horrible grade for a reason. He can't pass rush against a tree. He's old, and he has a 3% win rate. Marshawn Kneeland is a rookie. You know what? Let me go back to DeMarcus Lawrence because I don't want to be the guy that hates on players. I just think he's older. I don't think he can pass rush very well anymore. He's a fine run defender in moments, but he has not been a good run defender this year. He just hasn't. I really wish him the best. I thank him for everything he's done for Dallas, but he hasn't been able to pass rush very well in like 4 years. Marshawn Kneeland is a rookie, and he's played good when given the opportunity, but Zimmer has been very, very careful with how he's played rookies. Sam Williams, out for the year. That was supposed to be DeMarcus Lawrence's replacement long term. Chauncey Golston, he's good against the pass, but not very good against the run. And that's it. Dallas has ignored all position groups on their defense, except maybe corner. In 3 years now, they have these pieces they randomly add in here and there, but they've never done anything to add a key piece in there. Micah Parsons is literally a huge part of this defense, and he is worth an entire rant about podcasting or whatever you want to be mad at him about because he is on social media all the time. But he's not the Cowboys' problem, and without him, this franchise isn't making the playoffs in the last 3 years. Their roster is good, and a lot of people respect it, but Micah Parsons elevates it to a level we haven't seen. They spent an entire offseason playing around with Dak and CD. I'm not criticizing Dak and CD. They deserve their money. They earned it. But instead of being prepared to pay him beforehand, they had to spend this offseason just having to do contract negotiations or talk to the media and act like they were doing something about it. They ignored safety for so long. They signed a former first-round pick in Malik Hooker 3 years ago, or before 2021, and act like, okay, that's going to be enough for a long time. And Donovan Wilson, former 5th or 6th round pick. Jaron Kearse was on the roster. They're like, okay, he's the guy that can shut down tight ends. Well, he was one of the worst strong safeties in the NFL last year. He was awful outside of that Green Bay game. He was the best defender or best secondary player graded against Green Bay. So they ignored safety. They've ignored linebacker. Leighton Vander Esch retired. They haven't really done anything outside of that, out of drafting him and Parsons when Parsons was a linebacker in college. That's really it. And then corners, I'll give them credit for corners. Edge rushers, Sam Williams and Marshawn Kneeland, second-round draft picks. They've spent on them. That's some development. Mozzie Smith is the only move they've made in interior defensive tackle or defensive line. That is it. And he has been developed horrifically. I could get into the offense and all those issues there. I mean, they have a negative running game. They probably have a bottom 3 starting running back in the league. Their passing game is struggling because their tight end has been hurt. CeeDee Lamb did not play in training camp, and that's not even his fault. He held out because he deserved money, and every receiver they have outside of him has refused to either block, run routes properly. I mean, Brandon Cooks has had multiple 1,000-yard seasons, and at this point, he's running Spencer James routes. He has looked unmotivated as well. Jalen Brooks and Jalen Tolbert actually played really good in the game against the Ravens towards the end because they showed fight. I'd love for Turpin to get more reps in there, and Ryan Flournoy. You heard of him yet? But yeah, Jerry will convince everyone they don't have money. The league will convince people. The media will convince people. You know what? I'm not going to be the guy that blames the media. I'll blame Jerry. All these diehard fans buy into it, or all these bandwagon fans that want to hate the Cowboys and say it's Dak's fault or CD's fault for asking for money. Most of the time, I'll say 95% of the time when an athlete asks for money, they're pretty warranted in asking for it, in a star. And the issue here is the Cowboys have had the money or have had the ability to get the money, and they don't spend it. Look at every excuse you ever have in the book. Dak early in his career, we didn't have the money because, Tony's dead money from retiring or Dez Bryant's dead money. It's not true. They had a lot of money they didn't spend. Go look at recent years. They had money, and Stephen Jones would use the excuse of cap space in 2022. And this past offseason, Dak could have gotten flipped with a certain signing bonus and an extension done in time. You could have kept Tyron Smith and don't have to rely on a rookie left tackle in a championship year or a year where you're saying you're all in. Okay, so the entire recording was pretty much done right before the Giants game. Everything edited before then, but I was going to wait after to post. I had a feeling the Cowboys would win, but I still needed to see. The Cowboys looked awful in that game in terms of their standards over the last 3 years. They couldn't run the ball still. Their rushing defense was better, way better, but their passing defense was bad. Their corner depth is weak right now because everyone's hurt, and Trayvon Diggs was the only secondary player on the field last night that showed any sort of talent at this point. The linebacking core looked weak. Mozzie Smith looked way better. All the criticisms with Mozzie Smith, he looked way better last night. DeMarcus Lawrence had a 0% rush win rate, or pass rush win rate. And the other thing to note is, that's the disastrous part, DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons are going to be out for a while now for the Cowboys, until maybe after their bye. And this is the part of the video where I basically say all these issues on top of serious injuries with an upcoming really hard schedule. This is not their year to even make the playoffs, it feels like. It feels like at this point, the people that thought they couldn't make the playoffs, they were right. Because this team, realistically, might end up being 3-8 through 11 games. That is starting to look that bad in Dallas. If you go look at their schedule, the 49ers, the Lions, Philly, and a lot of those games are at the places, at the 49ers. They're playing the Steelers this week. Next week, and things are not looking good for Dallas. And I wanted to add this towards the end of the video because the injuries are not a part of why I made this video. I made the video because of scheme, roster issues, and everything. This team is not winning a ring this year. This team is not winning a playoff game this year. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. This is Son of a Sports, and I'll catch y'all next time.